born and raised in a country that was so free. People always smiling, as far as I could see. I didn't know pollution or oil slicks in the sea. But deep inside my empty heart, there was something bothering me. Lyrics from a song written by Brian. I was fortunate enough to have been raised on a lovely farm in a beautiful part of the world, just north of Bulawayo, Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. It was so peaceful, no political turmoil in those days. I had African friends. I wasn't prejudiced against the color of their skin. We played together and enjoyed the natural beauty of our surroundings. The African sunsets were spectacular, and even the animals seemed to be at peace. My innocence and naivete were short-lived. My inner belief that all was well, and that all people lived in peace and harmony, was soon to be shattered with the realization of the true heart condition of my fellow man. Due to the fact that there was no school local to our farm, I had to go to boarding school some 50 miles away. Boy, did I hate that. New faces, strange surroundings, no mum and dad, no friends. It was really scary for a young boy, and I couldn't wait for Friday afternoons when my granny would pick me up and take me to the movies, then home to the farm to be with my mum and dad and friends. For some reason, at boarding school, I was the target of a few bully boys who took a liking to beating me up. Retaliation was not a part of who I was, and I could not understand why they would want to pick on me. Well, I tried my best to hide away, but there were not many places to run. One day, a guy by the name of Ben Roots pulled one of the bullies off me and stood between them and me. At last I had found a friend, someone who actually cared. He took me aside and taught me to stand up for myself, to hit back. After a while, an aggression rose up within me. It's amazing what actually lurks within us, and I went after one of the bullies. Well, I couldn't believe it. I nearly choked him to death. Ben had to pull me off him. It didn't stop there. I went after the next guy, same result. I was never bothered by anyone at that school again. Fortunately for me, my father reigned in my newfound power by saying to me, after he learned of this fracas, "Son, be careful. There will always be someone stronger and faster than you." That settled that. I remembered my father's advice, and so far, so good. Sooner or later, we are all confronted with experiences that stir up anger and resentment, and we develop our own coping mechanisms. We tend to become somewhat disillusioned with our world and the people in it. Only you know the hurts, disappointments, and fears you carry. They are well hidden away and well masked. My next big lesson in life, that all was not well with my world, was during my high school years. Mr. Niven, my maths teacher, trying desperately to help me come to grips with maths, used to give me extra lessons after school. However, after 2 or 3 attempts, the poor man sat down opposite me, sighed deeply, and looked at me with those disbelieving eyes of his. He didn't have to say a word. I knew what he was thinking. The lights were on, but there was nobody home. He did his best to encourage me and wished me luck. He really meant well, but it was like a Russian and a Chinese person trying to make a fruit cake together. We just could not understand each other. Well, I guess the whole of the human race is a bit like this. There are varying degrees of tension and misunderstanding between us, different cultures, husbands and wives, parents and children, bosses and workers, the list goes on. Wars break out, families split, nations build borders, employees leave. Envy, hatred, jealousy become the driving forces. What we need is a common denominator, something we can focus on, which will bring us together. This focus has to be above and beyond our own opinions and thinking. The end-of-year exams was not a good time for me. It soon exposed what lessons I hadn't retained during the year. Needless to say, I dropped out of school early. At the age of 18, I had completed and survived my 1 year's compulsory military service in the Rhodesian Army. I emerged with such an entrenched fear of the unknown. I never knew whether I would have been crippled for life by standing on a landmine, or if there was someone out there just waiting to have a clear shot at me. I can really understand how many veterans, who have been through more than I had, can react under the pressure of this unprocessed fear. This paranoia, combined with a failed marriage, lost job, or similar devastating experience, can explode with horrible results. as we have often read about in the newspapers. Once out of the army, I went hard out to enjoy my life to the full. I loved music and so joined a rock band. Well, it was great, and once again, I felt that childhood freedom. Once again, all was well and everyone loved the one they were with. Drugs, drink, and girls, it sounds so carefree and such fun. Yes, there is pleasure in sin for a season. But after years of being a professional musician, the pleasure became a nightmare. It was no longer fun, but a meaningless existence. I couldn't hide my true condition. It really came to a peak one night during a gig at a well-known holiday resort near Durban in South Africa. During a drinks break, a guy introduced himself to me and said, "I wish I was in your shoes." I didn't take much notice at the time, but that night, lying in bed processing my day, I began pondering on what the guy in the bar had said. My life had all the seemingly enviable trappings, girls, drugs, etc. But as I considered all this, I thought to myself, he wouldn't want to be me. He doesn't know how unhappy I really am and how empty my life really is. Next day, more of the same. After a year or so, I ended up right on the edge, strung out. Boy, oh boy, was I a mess. It was like walking a tightrope, petrified, out of control, as anyone who has experienced this sort of lifestyle would agree. Often, during this phase of my life, I cried out to God to help me because no one around me could help. I would promise God that if He helped me out of these abusive times, I would never do these things again. He did rescue me on numerous occasions. I would dry out and get semi-sane, but lo and behold, I would forget my promise to God and go and do the same things all over again. I nearly ended up a statistic when I suffered a perforated ulcer at the age of 23. I clearly recall the doctors saying to me, "How could you do this to yourself? You should be ashamed of yourself." If only I could have found someone or something to really help me out of this destructive lifestyle. I had to get away from all of this. I dropped out of the music industry altogether and drove home to my family. Fortunately, my uncle owned a few businesses and was able to employ me. It took me about a year to become reasonably peaceful, but even after this quiet period, deep inside my empty heart there was something bothering me. Well, I thought to myself, I have finally grown up, I'm mature. I said goodbye to Mum, and with my newfound sanity I was ready to face the big bad world again. I had figured it out. You get yourself a wife, make money, buy a house, have kids, and live happily ever after. It seemed such a revelation. After all, that's what most people on planet Earth are supposed to do, isn't it? I met my first wife while driving buses in Durban. After a short courting time, without having put too much thought into the matter, we decided to get married. I just did what I thought most people were doing. Monkey see, monkey do. I will never forget the strange experience I had whilst we were taking communion at our wedding ceremony. I had no sooner finished partaking of the Eucharist and the wine, when a revelation jolted me. It was like I had suddenly realized or woken up to what we had just done, being spiritually joined together as man and wife, before God, till death do us part. The wedding festivities soon blotted out any deep feelings of my first truly spiritual experience of there being a God, and that He was watching me. Not far into marriage, the next phases of buying a house or having a family seemed to be futile, and the future appeared less than bright. The same old song kept repeating inside of me, but deep inside my empty heart, there was something bothering me. My encounter with Jesus was not far away. I changed jobs and became a long-distance truck driver. I needed to be alone and to try and sort out why I was so unhappy. I soon discovered that most of my fellow truckies were just like me, very unhappy, disillusioned with life and not coping with its complexities, disconnected, unwanted, unfulfilled, and suffering from a variety of other life ailments. We thought that if we just kept on driving, we might find what we were looking for. Maybe something along the way would stop us in our tracks. Well, talking with other drivers made me even more depressed. I requested a black African man, who could hardly speak a word of English, to accompany me on my long trips. This suited me fine, as we did not have to engage in much conversation. I was at the point of realizing that all words were really meaningless. When someone asked me how I was, I felt they didn't really care at all, so I concluded that there was no point in engaging in much conversation. I would arrive back home on Friday nights and my wife and I would meet up with a friend named Rusty and his wife. Rusty was a bit like me, he didn't want to speak too much. Our wives drank and watched videos while Rusty and I drank and played chess. Come Monday morning, back on the road again. Very exciting, wasn't it? Not. After a year or so, guess what? Surprise, surprise, our marriage was falling apart. I just wanted to be away all the time to think about my reason for being and needed a reason to carry on. Everything seemed meaningless and lifeless. The more money I made, the more I wanted. All I had really done was change a previous lifestyle, drink, drugs, and girls for another. It was so depressing. I had come to the end of myself. I started to ask people, what's going on? Can anyone help me? Someone please help me. I was now going through a divorce. This was a rip and inner turmoil that I had never anticipated. I would rather have had a fight with 10 men than go through this painful experience. At least with 10 guys in front of me, I would be able to see just what I was up against. When a man and a woman are joined in marriage, there is a definite spiritual union. That's why when we do separate, that parting is so painful. Nobody gets out of a breakup unscathed, no matter how well we might camouflage it. We are never the same again. Time does heal to a certain extent, but only Jesus can really heal those deep scars. No one offered me any advice that really calmed my spirit. Then a friend suggested that I read the Bible, which I did, thinking it must have some truth in it. But after reading the first few verses in Genesis and reading how God made the heavens and then the earth and the stars and seas and everything in them, all in a matter of a few days, I closed the Bible in total frustration, thinking to myself, how can anyone really believe this stuff? Well, now I was really depressed. There were no answers from any direction. My encounter with Jesus was now only a few months away. I was attending a railway college. It was called a college, but it was really just a place where they taught you how to drive your truck correctly. Now boys, no wheel spins. Don't put your exhaust brake on at 3 a.m. while driving through a quiet, sleepy neighborhood. Yes, many a soundly sleeping victim has awoken to the awful sound of the exhaust being sucked back into the engine and thought, my God, World War III has broken out. You naughty boys, you. During timeout at the college, I went into the library. Looking through the autobiographical section, I pulled out 3 books to read over the weekend. One of them was filled with testimonies of various people, from all walks of life, whose lives had been changed by a personal encounter with Jesus Christ. Well, I was amazed that people could actually have a relationship with God. As I read through the book, I began to see that they had peace with God since inviting Jesus to come into their lives. One of the stories was about a businessman who had found God, and I thought to myself, if only I could experience what had happened to him. A short time later, on a Sunday night, I got back to the college early and was alone in the 10-bed dormitory, lying there thinking about that businessman's encounter with Jesus. I so sensed the presence of Jesus at the foot of my bed, and with no preconceived words or thoughts, I raised my hand and said, Jesus, what you did for that man, I pray you would do for me. No big fanfare, no fireworks, just an amazing peace came over me. So much so that I flushed my remaining Valium tablets down the toilet. That night, I had a peace that I had never experienced before. I slept like a newborn child. Next day, I looked out of the window, saw the trees, and saw the sky. They were so different. It was like I was really alive for the first time in my life. It was like I had been sleeping for 26 years. Jesus was now in and part of my life.